insights, stories, and pearls of wisdom by entrepreneurs and business people from all walks of life. This is Shareable with Cam H. Lynch. Hello, and once again, welcome to the podcast known as Shareable, where we have conversations with amazing entrepreneurs who are killing it worldwide, and they share business and entrepreneur insights, plus heaps more. Today's guest is another entrepreneur who started off in a very regimented way of life, but has since seen success in the creative and artistic arena. Sarah Ritchie is the co-director and lead choreographer of Kinetica, Western Australia's premier performing arts company and circus school. Sarah previously trained as an artistic gymnast for over 10 years, finishing at an international elite level. But when injury put an end to her gymnastics career, she transferred her knowledge into coaching young gymnasts at a recreational, state, and national level. Shortly thereafter, though, Sarah discovered and developed a passion for circus training. Years later, together with a long-term training partner, Rebecca, Sarah established Kinetica Circus Arts in 2012. From there, her and her team are able to develop elite circus performers in Perth, along with bringing the joy and craziness of circus to as many people as possible in many different capacities. Along with the success as both a standalone performer and an entrepreneur, Sarah's company Kinetica has also recently seen great success as they scooped the Best Circus Award for the Perth Fringe World Arts Festival, a feat which, as someone myself who's been a part of Fringe for many years and can see how strong their competition is no mean feat. In our conversation, Sarah and I talk about the unique challenges Sarah faces running a human circus school, her experiences with sponsorship and government initiatives, and what she needed to be aware of, why the schools decided to remain a not-for-profit entity, and how that ties into their values and what they do, working with millennial performers and how to get the best out of them, Sarah's best business hacks, and much more. This was a great conversation in regards to creatives and the different opportunities you can leverage if you're in the right field or if you have the right set of culture or values in your business, and of course why that in itself is important. Sarah and her company have a very clear vision of what they are and what they're setting out to achieve, and this episode really highlights that. Small disclaimer before we begin, this interview was actually conducted back at the end of last year, 2016. But as far as I know, all the details are still up to date. But please make sure you still drop Sarah a line via her website and social media. All the links, of course, will be detailed in the show notes. So without further ado, let's get into our conversation with Sarah Ritchie. Please welcome to the show, Sarah Ritchie. Welcome to Smart eLabs podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, not a problem. So I've given a bit of an intro beforehand, and obviously I just gave you a little bit of an introduction there, but I do like to ask our guests, when they come on and people sort of ask them what they do for a living, how do you best describe yourself to other people, essentially?
As you described, I'm co-director of Kinetica Circus.
Yes.
In actuality, what that means is I'm a circus coach, a circus performer, I'm a staff manager, I'm accounts payable, I'm lots and lots of different things.
Yes.
But my main responsibility is to run these two halves of the company that we have, which is half performance troupe and half circus school.
Excellent. So wearing lots of different hats, as many people do in this sort of startup world, or basically any sort of endeavor that isn't sort of on the traditional path. If you were to, besides co-director and choreographer, is that sort of what you would describe yourself as when you're sort of, say, meeting people at like a networking function or get introduced by other people? Do you just sort of say co-director and choreographer, or do you find yourself in essence to be something else entirely, or what?
Mostly I would just say director. So okay. More often than not, Rebecca, who's my other co-director, we'd both be at the same function together.
Of course.
And we would introduce ourselves as director of Kinetica Circus. And generally, because it's such a weird thing, we get asked, what's that? What does that involve? And you end up explaining anyway. So director to be the simplest way to put it.
Yeah, kind of the inverse of answering the question. It's sort of a loaded question or a loaded answer, I should say, which helps people prompt, which is a very good technique, I think, for people who, especially people who are maybe running products or online sort of businesses that are a little bit out of the box and hard to describe. If you sort of do it in a way which is to say, oh, well, this is our company, and it gets people sort of asking the sort of follow-up questions, that's a really good way to obviously meet new people and get them interested in what you're doing, but also helps you make it quite obvious as to what you're talking about. So I take it no one's ever, I mean, especially with the advent of things like Cirque du Soleil and things like that, no one's ever confused you or your or the other co-director, Rebecca, of running a normal circus or anything like that?
Oh, no, we get that all the time.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, generally not in sort of the professional functions or networking type places. Like usually that's more, I guess, when you meet a client or where you meet even just people at a friend's dinner party or something. We still get the question, oh, are you a clown, or do you have? A lot of people actually say to me, oh, you don't have animals, do you?
Yes.
So we do get some confusion with that.
And do you have you sort of crafted a good, sharp, short response to people who, I mean, for all intents and purposes, they maybe shouldn't know that you run like a more human circus, but at the same time you would think they're a little bit more progressive. And just like people, like when I try to explain Bitcoin to people, they just say, well, that's just money on the internet, right? How is that different from like money in my account? And I then have to give them a sharp, short, concise way as to how it's completely different. Without insulting their intelligence or anything, have you found a sort of interesting solution for that particular problem for your industry?
Most of the time, when you start talking about contemporary circus, it flicks a switch, and they see that it's less traditional circus, more contemporary circus. But also, it's definitely the human aspect. So I will say something like, we run a contemporary circus company where we, find the potential in human body, that sort of thing.
Fabulous. Can you just repeat that again? That's so concise. Can you just repeat that phrase again?
So we run a contemporary circus where we find the potential in the human body.
Beautiful. That's and for our listeners out there, that's the sort of even more precise than an elevator pitch. It's basically finding potential in the human body, and that just opens that up for so much opportunity. And it's still very niche in what you do. Your service, but that particular phrase just opens people's minds up to so many different things. And while we're on the topic, yourself and Rebecca are both very multifaceted in what you can do as far as human movement and human potential. Could you just give the audience a little bit of a insight as to where you sort of began this journey and how you sort of started off and how you sort of finagled your way yourself and the group into where you are today? Because the group, as it stands, has been around since 2012, but I believe before that you've had quite a bit of experience in a similar field. If you would care to elaborate.
Yes, definitely. So for me, my journey to circus started when I was a child. I was an elite gymnast, so an Olympic level gymnast, and an injury cut that short for me. And it took me a few years to find circus, which was somewhere where I could use the skills that I had developed in gymnastics to avoid the serious injuries that I had generated in gymnastics. Right. So I met Rebecca 13, 14 years ago, and she taught me my first aerial circus skills. So she was already, a few years experienced into teaching and performing circus. And I obviously had a very high-level ground aspect behind me.
Right.
And then, so we kind of got together.
Just to clarify for the listeners there, I believe what Sarah is saying is ground-based is more sort of floor work with their gymnastics, with the flexibility and the actual, acrobatic techniques. Whereas when Sarah's saying aerial, you mean what exactly?
That's all the aerial circus apparatus. So all of your aerial silks, which are the fabric, I guess, that come from the ceiling, the aerial hoop, the aerial trapeze, all of the in the air human circus.
Yes. So when you see, I'm sorry, what was that?
that was where Rebecca came from originally.
Right. Yeah. So just for our listeners as well, just so, yeah, when you see a Cirque du Soleil show and they're doing the things with the big silks coming down, or to a lesser extent when Pink is sliding around on things and doing stuff on her concert tours, that's probably the most mainstream exposure people get to that. But that was what Sarah's referring to when she says aerial. They're not flying a plane or doing a no-handed cartwheel or anything like that. So
yeah. Definitely. So anything that's attached from the roof is considered an aerial apparatus.
Excellent. So from there you meet Rebecca and...
Yeah, so we met and obviously got along like a house on fire, and both being quite competitive, performance-based people, I guess personality-wise, we really built on each other's strengths. So she taught me the aerial aspects, I taught her some of the ground aspects, and we really combined that, and we became very quickly duo partners. So we had a lot of acts together, working and training and performing together. So we generated a pretty good bond there. We worked for a professional Perth arts company. It was sort of circus-based, but the director was a contemporary dancer, so it was sort of had aspects of a lot of different styles of performance. And we performed for them for, not quite a decade, so about 8 years or so.
Right.
At the end of that...
that was as a duo you're performing for this company?
Duo and solo.
Okay,
we had many aspects, like we had several acts that were duo performances, and we coached for them as well, and we each had acts as well. So
okay. So you were, I guess, were you, for lack of a better term, sort of contracted to this one particular company?
Yes.
So okay.
In terms of modern dance, we were probably the principals of the company, and also probably, I guess, senior staff members, because we really ran sort of the coaching, not the programming, but we designed a lot of the coaching.
Right. That's really interesting. So you both sort of were hired by this, I guess, third party, as you call it, or your company, basically. And from there, you were basically writing a lot of the syllabus. You were doing a lot of the instruction. And it feels, by the sounds of it, it was structured sort of at the behest of the skills of yourself and Rebecca. And should you two have not stayed around, they probably may not have grown as much as they did. Is that an accurate assessment?
I guess it just depends who they had. We definitely didn't start that way with the company. We were in there a few years, and I guess, we developed that relationship, and we obviously wanted to use... I had been coaching gymnastics for many, many years, so I had a really strong coaching background. So for me, it was a bit of a natural progression to say, hey, we should be doing this way. From that experience, and I think they may have been a different kind of company because our expertise kind of pushed it in one particular direction. But who knows where I'm not going to take credit for them. Who knows where they would have taken it? But in the end, they decided to move internationally, and we had about 60 kids who were in, a youth development program. We're about to be without any circus. So with a little bit of startup help from the old directors, we started, a sister company that was still attached to the original company, and we took on board those 60, and it was a real splash in the deep end. We had no idea what we were doing.
Yep.
We had very, very little warning, literally 2 weeks, from knowing the company was finishing to having our own company. So we were very, very unprepared, and I would not advise anybody to start a business in that respect, but we kind of felt that we had no option. We had all these kids. We wanted to continue training. We wanted to continue performing. It was kind of the only option we had at the time, and it has been a massive learning curve from there, I guess, to the next couple of years where we progressed that company, but we really felt that the design of it was very stagnant and was not going to succeed. So we closed that company and started Kinetica.
Wow, fantastic. So, obviously, yeah, taking over any sort of large business endeavor without a sort of concerted mentorship is extremely tough, or at least any of the co-founders, as in either yourself or Rebecca, having any sort of formalized business training is also very, very hard. And I think, yeah, like you said, you would recommend against anyone doing that, jumping in feet first. And just, but I feel also the success of Kinetica, if you hadn't had this amazing partnership with Rebecca, do you feel you wouldn't have been able to build it up or even start it basically on your own?
Oh, I don't think I would have, no. I think Rebecca and I, in some ways, are opposites. So, we really kind of add to each other. Even creatively, even in our creative development for our shows, we look at things so differently. And as long as you can deal with that and evolve with that, because occasionally that sort of opposition can create some little bits of friction. As long as we can keep that on the level and we know each other really, really well, so we're able to do that, then we just find that it works together much, much better. Because we don't see everything the same way, we don't approach everything the same way. So really, something that might have been really two-dimensional, it gets this extra dimension from a whole new view, and then we combine it together, and that works in our creative development, but also in our business development when we're looking at the classes we provide. And, the other aspects of what we provide people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is a testament to anyone who's looking to start a business. I mean, a lot of people do sort of enter it as in, this is my baby, I want it exactly done as this. But when Stella and I are discussing new business ideas or whatever, and she says to me something along the lines of, oh, what would you do if you went to this website and did this, that, and the other? I'm like, I'm the worst example because I'm not a typical person of this, and neither is she. So if you sort of have someone to leverage off of who has a different mindset, a different way of looking at and processing information. And in your particular case with Kinetica, a lot of it is to do with creativity, but obviously there is a balance of making it accessible for a larger market, and obviously profitability is an issue as well to keep obviously the business going and everything, and to keep the company going. So that plays into it as well. And I think because you and Rebecca have such a huge respect and such a large amount of integrity for what you do, and that shows in your shows and your teaching and everything like that, I can imagine those conversations can get a little heated depending on the direction and things like that. So
yeah, absolutely. I think anyone that's had a friend for over a decade would know, and then when you add a business in with that friendship, there's always to be I guess the little bits of friction where we think things differently, but we have our strategies to work around things, and we also take responsibility for different aspects. So, we might say, okay, on this one, I'm going to step back and you're going to take the lead, and it's going to be your creative direction that drives this, and then on a different one, it might be the other way around.
Right.
And so we have to create the solutions as they arise, but underneath all of that, there's we have a huge respect for each other and for our different and differing abilities. And I think that's what kind of holds the whole thing together, along with this, decades-old friendship where it being circus, we've literally kicked each other in the head and all sorts. So,
yes.
More than, the average person, I guess.
Yeah, I can imagine some, if you're doing like a larger show and some hasty costume changes backstage, you might see more of them than you originally bargained for. And I'm sure there's a lot of interesting sort of intimate moments you've shared as far as performance is concerned. And that nothing bonds people faster than that, that's for sure. So just moving on with the business. So this far in the timeline, you've started Kinetica, and you've been running for about 4 years now, is that correct?
Yes. To be honest, I can't even remember the exact date that we started this business, but that sounds about right.
Okay, sure. So I think it's been that kind of ride, I'm sure. So I think it was around 2012 you started. So as it stands running Kinetica specifically, what are or currently are some of the biggest challenges that you and Rebecca face as part of running a type of business that you do? So essentially it's a human circus school. I'd imagine there's a host of challenges, but I imagine there's a lot of things that actually work to your favor as well.
Yeah, I think there's probably two sets of challenges. There's personal challenges for us because we're both working mums. So we both have two small little ones running around the house behind us. So one of the challenges is really a work-life balance for us. In some ways, running your own business is really advantageous because you can adapt some of the hours. So 90% of the time I drop off and pick up my children from school. And to be able to work and do something like that at the same time is really a blessing.
Oh, yes.
To do that.
Yeah.
In other ways, it can be difficult because you're always taking work home. I'm getting calls at really odd hours of the night, in first thing in the morning. And a lot of the time, when we have performances or even some of the classes that we run, they are after hours. So, we have some anti-social, anti-children, I guess, hours
yes.
that we need to do. So there is a certain amount of flexibility, but there is a certain amount of stuff that kind of just has to be dealt with that is, does kind of harm the work-life balance a bit, but it's one of the sacrifices of doing what we do.
Yes, absolutely. And Stella and myself are the same. We get to work predominantly at home in sort of, comfy pants and, slippers or whatever. But on the flip side, I'm doing some work for a startup that's based in Dubai, but they also have offices in London and remote staff in Boston. So I get the short end of the stick doing the conference call when they're all sort of late morning, early afternoon. I'm at midnight from Perth, just chiming in and having to do these production meetings. So again, there's the good with the bad, but I think the good definitely is part of the better part of the trade-off for that for sure. So being able to sort of work the business more around the work-life balance, obviously there's a give and take there. As far as the actual business is concerned, and the sort of industry you're in, are there any sort of unique challenges within that paradigm, and then if there is, how do you sort of overcome those?
With the work-life balance?
Well, more with Kinetica, basically. So as a human circus school or circus troupe, are there sort of any sort of unique business challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis or annually that you typically wouldn't see in other businesses?
I think one of them is the insurance and safety aspect of circus. So that's a real strong thing, especially because we're an aerial circus, so we do a lot of things that are tied from the roof, and there's a lot of certification and technical aspects of that. And we do come across things that, people can just fear that as an outset. Someone's hanging from the roof. No, that can't possibly happen. That's real, a bit too much. And then, sometimes for us, we present, a performance, or we present an opportunity for a workshop or something like that. And at the outset, people love it and it's a great idea. And then it gets to the person that makes the OH&S decision, and then they say, oh, actually, you know what? No way. Not going near it. And, no amount of giving them qualifications and safety manuals and all this other stuff will convince them, because somebody has, just seen aerial circus and gone, hell no. So I guess that's one of them, and we have to pay a huge amount in insurance, and, half the time, because you get a lot of, I guess, in this industry, you do get some cowboys that open up classes for aerial circus without necessarily having a huge amount of training to back up how they teach that. And consequently, there are some minor injuries and things that happen elsewhere that then hike up our insurance premium.
Of course, yes.
And
people who aren't qualified to do exactly their job. They've got a place like that in the US. It's called LA, and there's a lot of people there who just make up occupations and claim to be massively well informed on it. So that obviously makes it harder for you. I think, just going back to the occupational health and safety, do you feel that because it is such a unique environment that the assessors may not have had a huge amount of experience with, if any at all, they are more inclined to err on the side of caution, lest their judgment not be there? Yeah,
definitely. It's more a matter of, I don't know what this is, I don't know how that works, so I don't want to be responsible for it. And if that person that is responsible in the venue, then their say goes. And a lot of the time, we have a way of getting around that. I'm really familiar with a lot of the work safe requirements and a lot of the paperwork surrounding that. So we do safe work method statements for just about any performance we do, whether the venue requires it or not. So what that does is that if I get any kind of inkling that someone might be a little bit wary, I send them safe work method statements. I send them, the riggers certificates and all the professional qualifications and everything, and explain exactly how we do and what we do. They tend to kind of, if I get to them before that panic stage,
right,
I can kind of work my way through
it. It's a bit of a sad state of affairs when you're a business doing your due diligence, and then they're still saying no, and there's as you say, cowboys out there doing Lord knows what to God knows who, and they're not as scrutinized heavily, unfortunately. But it is fantastic to see that you guys do have such a high level of care for and safety for your students and staff alike. And that's something we obviously advocate here on Smart Entrepreneurs Lab. Just speaking of basically, well, government regulations are one thing, but as far as initiatives are concerned, your school is involved with things like Act, Belong, Commit for community involvement, and Healthway, which is a healthy living initiative for the government here in Australia to advocate healthy lifestyles in young people. How did you sort of find out about this sort of sponsorship of these initiatives, and obviously do you feel they've been a benefit to yourself and the community, or how have they integrated well into your business model? And like, if you're looking for a sponsorship that's got a very specific theme, would that be similar to someone getting sponsorship from like a big company, and then you they sort of say you can't say this or you can't do that? Like, Can you just share your experience with us about that?
Yeah, sure. So we knew about things like Healthway and Lottery West sponsorships because both Rebecca and I previously had been involved in initiatives and programs that used that sponsorship. So for me, through my gymnastics, for Rebecca, through other circus schools that she had been with prior to, our commitment together. So we knew that they were there, and we both knew enough about different programs and what we wanted to provide the community with, that we felt like we could go to Healthway with a program that was worthwhile, was actually going to work for what they wanted, and also that we could really deliver and would suit us with, our whole company here really is based around the fact that we just love circus. It's I guess you can tell now it's our life, but you have to really love what you do to do this sort of thing. So for us, it's an easy sell. We can say, well, if we can give this to this many people, we know exactly how they're going to benefit for that, because we love it. We want it. We want everyone to experience that. So we just approached Healthway, and basically they provide you with a message. So you give them the program through a rather large grant application, where you detail what programs it's for, what it's going to do for the community, how it's going to benefit everybody else, and then what you're going to spend the money on. And then they look at that, and if they see you as worthy, they will then assign you to the program that they believe it fits best into. So for us, that's Act, Belong, Commit, which is definitely about mental health, being a part of a group and a team, and benefiting from making commitments and achieving goals. So for us, that's very much how circus is. We have previously been involved in Be Active, which is basically just being healthy, active lifestyle, which, obviously that's also, circus is a very physical activity.
Yes, indeed. I can tell you from first hand. Yes, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess part of why we did this was we had provided some really low-cost workshops for community events. We did some NAIDOC days. We did, local community festivals. We've had some youth carer groups in, which are basically, just these young carers who have adults in their family that they are actually looking after instead of being just an average kid. Right. They do a lot for their parent or within their family. So we worked with a few of those sorts of groups to provide either free or really low cost workshops to try and give them something else, and not yet met anyone that starts something to do with circus and does not just go, where is this and how have I not, especially kids, but, adults as well. So for us, we kind of looked at that and said, we see the benefits here. How can we give that to more people? And we can't afford to do it for free. So one of the things was Healthway we were able to put, outline exactly what these programs are, who it's for, what the benefits are, and then how much money that's going to cost. And then Healthway then helped subsidise some of those activities for us. So we have more of an outreach program now with the Healthway's help than we had before.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, some of those initiatives are so good. And just for our listeners, the Act, Belong, Commit one is especially good, I think, because with the advent of the digital or internet age, I think more and more people, despite being able to connect to more and more people, I'm even having this interview with Sarah over Skype via, the internet, I think people are distanced more and more because of that, not in spite of it, basically. So that particular initiative is obviously gathering community around, getting to know people in your community, making friends, etc., etc. And it sounds really simple, but to be honest, it's just something that I don't see as much these days, which is very bizarre. But I think it fits Kinetica, both their core values and what they do, like a glove. And it's really good to know you guys are on board with that particular initiative. Yeah. Are these initiatives part of? I'm not too sure with your structure. Are you a for-profit organization or a non-profit organization?
We're a not-for-profit organization.
Right. And is there a particular reason you've decided to stay not-for-profit?
Part of it is the way we do things. I guess with all of our courses and classes, we really feel like that is a non-profit environment. I guess I've come from the gymnastics world where all of the most of the gymnastics businesses, they're all not-for-profit.
In Australia, yes, that's sad but true.
It's it's community coming together and doing something together. So I guess there's more for us in providing things outside of here than just making money. The performance troupe side, it just depends with that one. So there's always the option for us to kind of split the business a little bit. There is two definite halves to our business, and while at the moment they're all under the same banner, as we work and as we grow, it's one of the options that we're considering. But for us, it's a big step because we've always been not-profit. So it's, just one of those things to keep in mind.
Yes, no, absolutely. And if you ever decide to go down that track and do a sort of a split business decision, as sort of having like a performance side and a non-profit side, we would definitely love to have you back and learn from you about that experience, because I think it can serve people very well, depending, again, if you have dual purposes. Like, for instance, Kinetica obviously has one side of the coin is to serve the community and to spread the love of circus and education, and the other side is very much a performance aspect, which is obviously for people who are willing to pay for your amazing services. And if you've ever seen Kinetica perform, and I implore you to go to their site and YouTube and all that sort of stuff, or if you're local and you want to see one of their shows, you should definitely do that, because they are considerably amazing. Just a few more things before we wrap up. I presume that you mostly work with sort of millennials, or like have young people you either work with as teachers or basically students as well, because you do have quite a large pool of sort of youth students. Do you feel you face any sort of unique challenges with that particular group? And if so, what sort of skills do you utilize to make the best of those situations?
I don't know about unique. I think everyone with young staff probably has the same sorts of challenges. One of the benefits that I have is that a lot of my staff used to be students. So, back in, 8 years ago, we taught these young, early teenagers, and now they're our staff. So we have known them for many, many years. In a way, that's an advantage. In a way, it's a disadvantage, because they've known us for many, many years as well. But I guess, all the same things. I think one of the problems is communication. I think, in my experience, I've been not quite a 9 to 5, more a 7 to 7 office job before. And everything is very strict in communication. People are told what to do, how to do. You respond, you be there, or it's your fault. I think a lot of the time these days, especially because this isn't a normal business. Not everyone's sitting in an office. Um, communication's a bit hard. You might tell somebody something and say, this is what you need to do. And then when it gets a bit closer, they've completely forgotten about it, or, it's been overcome by something that was immensely more important, like a party. So
sad but true. Yes.
I think that's, that's one of the things. We've overcome that mostly by using social media. So we have a staff Facebook group where anything and everything goes up, to the point where it's, this person's going to be away this week, don't forget, just so that everyone's aware, and even if there's something that I want the staff to look at, if there's some sort of training manual or anything else, I can post it up there. I'm much more likely to get them to click on that than I am to send them an email and have them to see that email. So I guess that was a bit of a learning curve for me. A lot of really important things are arranged on Facebook message.
Yes, yes.
Really weird, but
no, I think if anything, it illustrates the fact that we have to start, as much as we don't like it, we sort of have to adopt the communication strategies that young people communicate with. And I hate Facebook. I don't have the app downloaded on my phone or my iPad or anything. But because we communicate with our staff via Messenger so much, I just have to be on it sort of semi-regularly to communicate with them. And you're 100% right. They're more inclined to read a Facebook message because they're on the thing all the time than read an email. Plus, with Facebook, the only handy thing is you can see if they've seen the message, which also is a double-edged sword, because when they've seen it and they're not replied, there's nothing more frustrating in the world. So.
But once again, because I know most of them have known them, since they were quite little.
Of course.
I can actually, do the mum thing and say, hey, I can see that you've read this message.
Yeah. So basically, to sort of overcome any issues, you do sort of, you said before, if someone does make a mistake or anything happens, should it happen, you basically say, look, you made the mistake, put your hands up and own it. So ownership, I think, is a big thing for you guys as far as, and also, I think setting the expectation beforehand, just to let people know exactly how you do business, what's on, what's not, as you might say, and I think in any sort of demographic or any group, taking ownership and also setting the expectation will serve you enormously. But I do find, as much as millennials get a bit of a bad rap, I think I do find that they do are a lot more receptive to taking ownership than other age groups or demographics are these days. And I'm not sure why. I think, again, it might cater to the whole sort of self-serving or sort of a reflection on them and their work, and they're very proud and happy to be in the limelight sort of thing. So if they do a good job, then they take ownership, and it kind of goes on from there.
I think.
Yes, absolutely. So just moving on, we've got a couple of quick fire questions. The answers don't have to be quick, but I just want to be respectful of your time. If you have one business hack or a program or a course that you've implemented in your business, and it could be at any part of your business, and it's seen the greatest returns, what would that be? So, it could even be just Facebook Messenger, and if that's the easiest way to communicate with your group. But if there's anything specific that our audience would like to know, definitely.
I don't think there's any one thing that's going to make this job easy, but would say more than anything, cultivate your team. Create a team atmosphere. Make sure that you're approachable to staff, and that they know that they can come to you and that you can come to them for anything. So I think that's a big one, because from there you get to know the strengths of your staff, and that's really important. Even if it doesn't seem relevant to the job you do, you'll turn around and go, hey, hang on, I need this. That person can do that. And then suddenly you're using your team in a different way. So, the majority of my team are coaches and performers, but I also have someone who, is really artistic and very good with media. So he can create some of our posters and things like that. I have someone who's really good in administration, so she might do some of the handouts for the classes. And what that does for me is something that might take me 2 hours will take him 20 minutes, and then it's off my books and on somebody else. They get to use talents that they actually enjoy too.
Right,
so,
right.
I guess if you haven't cultivated that team feeling and that feeling that you are appreciating them for everything that they do, they're less likely to say, oh, yeah, I'll do that for you. But, once you've got that, once you know that your company is their company, and, with a small business, you really have to do that, because what they do really affects your life.
Oh, yes.
You've really just got to create that team environment. And for us, we're Act, Belong, Commit. It works, it fits, it all, comes together beautifully. And then from there, you can trust your staff, you can utilise them in new ways, and then that will take some of the pressure off you in ways that you don't realise until it comes up.
Yes, absolutely. And I think also that does sort of lean on the point of taking ownership as well. So if you're able to leverage unique skills, like you said, some people are really good at graphic design, some people are really good at sort of administration. And if they're able to sort of flex those muscles, so to speak, as far as the skill sets, again, that's kind of another part of taking ownership and feeling like they really are part of the contributing to the business. But on the flip side of that, unless you have that group dynamic and that open communication, even if your staff have these skills, they may not be inclined to share them with you, or they may not have the confidence and things like that. So I think being comfortable, I think it's definitely not putting the horse before the cart. You can't just bluster into your office or wherever you work and go, oh, okay, who's good with Photoshop, or who can make a poster.
I'm going to do this now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and just making them realize that yes, that is a skill. It was only recently, I think, one of our performers was able. She didn't tell us she could juggle. She didn't tell us she could ride a unicycle. She had all these hidden talents. It's like, why didn't you tell us these things before? And they're like, well, I didn't think it was important. It's like, yeah, if it's performance and you can do it, then we would definitely like to know. So again, even when they're not sure it's something of value, I think as long as you keep those communication lines open, they'll be more inclined to sort of share these things with you, as opposed to having to pull teeth, as it were, as far as skill sets or anything, insights, or how the business is tracking and things like that as well.
Yeah.
If you could go back and talk to your 20-year-old self, what is the one best piece of business advice you would give her?
Oh, I don't think there's one thing, again. I think... Can I say three things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I take it they're sort of interrelated. So
yeah, sort of.
Okay.
So I guess take every opportunity to learn, no matter what. Okay, so even if it seems like it might be hard at the time or might be slightly irrelevant, every opportunity to learn, every opportunity to meet new people within the business or even remotely related to your business, make networks, meet mentors. If you have any opportunity like that, even if it's a difficult time, take it and do it. So that would be a huge one. When I was 20, I was hugely busy. I was working full time. I was performing. I was coaching. I was trying to, find the world that I wanted to be in, and it was all so confusing. And I had opportunities to start some networks and create some identities with people, and didn't take it because it was all too hard. And yes, you might not be able to do it at that time, but if the next opportunity comes up, go, okay, this one I'm going to take. So that one, that's a big one for me. I also think it's really important to keep your head above water financially, but please don't listen to the haters who tell you that you need to have a traditional job to succeed. Because
that's a huge one. What makes you think that?
Look, like I said, I've had a real traditional job. It kept my head above water. This is what I did in my downtime as such.
Your side hustle, your moonlight sort of thing, yeah.
So absolutely. But I really held on to that job for far too long, I feel. I love what I do, and it's, as you said, we've been 4 years into this particular business, and it's growing and growing, but this could have happened, a decade ago instead of now. And I really held off because you have to keep that job. You have to be doing your 9 to 5. I'm not saying quit the only job you have and go jump in the ocean and find your business.
No. You're not saying that at all. Just a disclaimer for our listeners real quick.
But, as long as you are financially capable of it, make sure that you're doing what you want to do. So don't let tell you what to do just because that's the smart or traditional way to do it.
Yeah, and I see this in all sorts of environments and cultures, especially in Australian culture. Australia is quite conservative when it comes to sort of entrepreneurship and starting your own business. And in Australia they call it tall poppy syndrome. So for our listeners out there who aren't from Australia, it's essentially the poppies, the flowers that grow the tallest, they get cut down first. Obviously, that's the kind of idea behind it. But I think Sarah's put it in the more sort of contemporary vernacular of your haters and people who are just going to hate on you for whatever reason. But as Sarah said, don't listen to them and just feel free to cut that cord, because if worse comes to worse, I'm sure you can always find another job. It may not be as good as the one you had previously, but if you're fortunate enough to live in a country or an economy where work's good or at least decent, you can always try it, and then or at least work it up to a point where you can just jump off with some semblance of wings, as opposed to taking the dive head first and learning to fly on the way down. Sure,
I did that for a while. I did both. I had to. I couldn't just start from the beginning with a business and not have the money coming in from elsewhere. So, and I think a lot of people have to do it that way. So that's a part of it, but it's definitely make sure that you are healthy money-wise,
yes.
But don't be told that that's what you have to do for the rest of your life. If you've got something that you want to take and run with, then make sure you find a way to do that whilst you're keeping your head above water.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Beautiful, fantastic ending insight there, Sarah. Thank you very much for that. And for listeners out there, if you want to know more about how to basically leverage your side hustle into your full-time hustle, of course, you can join our mailing list on smartentrepreneurslabs.com if you haven't joined already, or just go to Smart Labs and find us on social and you'll see all the insights there. Sarah, before we go, where can our listeners find out more about you and Kinetica and what you guys are up to?
Well, you can, of course, find us on Facebook. So it's Kinetica Circus. We have a website, www.kineticacdt.com. Or you can email us, give me a call if you want to have a chat.
If you've got any international work, if you want to fly the team out to your corporate event or anything like that.
Yeah, so just look us up online, basically. We're on YouTube as well, and you'll find some fancy photos there. Yeah,
all the links will be in the show notes, guys, so if you want to look them up from there, feel free to do so. And if you have any other questions for Sarah, her contact details will be there as well. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
The one thing that I would say, which is a bit boring really to finish on, but
that's okay.
It's something that I thought of when you asked me to do this, is from the beginning, when you first start the thing that you want to do and the thing that you want to be, take evidence of your successes, take evidence of your failures. So don't just experience something and say, that went well, that was awesome, I'll do that again. Take a picture, put it in a file, do something so that 2 years down the track, when you come back and say, oh, I did this and I need to put that for my grant proposal or for my sponsorship proposal or for anything else, you've got it all there. So no matter how small, document everything you do. Even if it's, doesn't have to be formal, doesn't have to be hours of work, throw a photo, throw a paragraph, throw anything into a file that you can come back to, and you'll use it, believe me.
Yeah, you can open a free Evernote account and just start a new notebook and just, like Sarah said, just throw little snippets. You can cut out bits on your desktop and glue them in. And Derek Sivers has actually had a very similar thing where he said, document processes as you're learning them, not once you've mastered them, because you're then learning them from an inquisitive mind that doesn't know what they're doing, as opposed to a masterful mind that knows exactly where the rabbit is, it's inside the hat sort of thing. So beautiful ending piece, Sarah. Thank you very much, and I hope all of you follow that and have found this talk immensely rewarding. Sarah, hopefully we'll get you back for round 2. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
No problem, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode, but until then, this is Cam H. Lynch signing out for Smart Entrepreneur Labs podcast, and we'll see you next time. Bye.